Hello, everyone. Hey, guess what? Now it's time to go to Bet Online, which is the world's most trusted betting platform and the number one source for betting on everything when it comes to football. Bet Online gives you every stat, every matchup, even the live odds and the spreads so that you can bet on games. Now, if you think you want the big money, you can participate in the $200,000 mega contest and a pick five game against the spread every single week for your chance to win the prize of $200,000. Of course, go to Bet Online. That's where the game starts. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bleav in Bengals podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcots, and we're joined now by Cincinnati Bengals beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm not doing so well, Charlie. Look, after losing the game to Philly on Sunday, week 8, I thought we'd be back at 500 and on our way to gaining altitude. Give me the state of the Bengals right now. Where are we? How are we doing? And where do we go from here?
Well, there's a deep sigh that I don't know came across on this screen, but what was really on my mind on Sunday was that what the season was always supposed to be about was keeping T. Higgins as the final piece for a guy that would put them over the top with their championship aspirations. Well, it turns out, one, that the Bengals need T. Higgins to even be a 10-win team. That's right. And then without T. Higgins, it's I think they're 0-3 without Higgins this year. And it's a 3-5 team that hasn't met expectations in any way. The young core and the defense has regressed. The offense without Higgins and without Orlando Brown has no identity. Players aren't getting better. Schematic and game management mistakes are getting made by Zach Taylor. Aside from Burrow and Chase, there just aren't much the Bengals can count on right now.
Yeah, look, the Sunday game against the Eagles was supposed to be the game to restore the hope. It was supposed to get us back to 500. Now we're sitting here with a 3-5 record. The Bengals now have to win at least a 10 or 11 game run to have a shot of the playoffs. Right now, your best bet is to try to win the division in order to get into the playoffs. So talk to me, what's the problem now? What are some of the essential things coming out of the meetings with the coaches?
So I talked to Geno Stone yesterday, and he said we're having fundamental issues. There are issues where guys aren't sure what they're supposed to do or they're not playing like it. There are things we've drilled in, Geno said, in practice, several reps that when the game and the lights come on and the game starts, they're just abandoning exactly the technique and the responsibilities they've been given. A great example is there was one play on Sunday where a routine motion you see a million times behind the line of scrimmage, and Josh Newton, DJ Turner are going, is it your guy? Is it my guy? Your guy? My guy? Yeah. And Devontae's wide open for a catch. So it actually should have been easier for Jalen Hurts on Sunday because he missed 3 wide open, uncovered receivers streaking down the field.
Yeah.
And that's losing football. That's worse than losing football. That's fundamental mistakes from a defense that was supposed to be able to go up against any team in the league.
What if I told you that the Philadelphia Eagles punted once the entire game on their very second possession of the game? After that, they would score on 6 straight possessions. In fact, they would score on 7 of their 8 drives for the entire game. They had the best scoring drive percentage of any team who played a Week 8 football game in the National Football League. And so the Eagles were the most efficient simply because our defense couldn't get them off the field. We didn't have 1 sack on Jalen Hurts. There was no pressure. He was essentially playing 7-on-7. And if Sam Hubbard isn't getting pressure on the quarterback, then nobody is getting pressure on the quarterback. It reminded me of the Washington Commanders game where the opposing team essentially scored on every single possession. That is not good defense, Charlie.
And there's one key difference between that and the Commanders game, and it's the defensive line's back at full strength. The Commanders game, they scapegoated, it was Zach Carter playing 75% of the snaps. Well, these year guys, this was the plan. And I think what you're seeing across the board is the plan on the defensive line hasn't worked. The plan at corner hasn't worked. The plan at safety hasn't worked. Like you said, I think, can't say enough about how much the pass rush underperformed in that game and all season. Yep. Lou only blitzed 6 times, and actually 3 of those blitzes were good plays for the Bengals defense, positive, successful plays. So why don't you blitz more when you're only having like 10 positive plays all game? That was a concern. So, guys just aren't winning one-on-one. It's a man-on-man league, and when you're not winning one-on-one up front, it's hard to do much of anything.
And talking in some of my circles are in terms of nationally, people who watch the Cincinnati Bengals from afar, and they said, looks like this team lacks the leadership, looks like they lack the energy. Not that there are people aren't trying, that the effort is there, but the enthusiasm isn't there. And I looked and I said, DJ Reader was a huge leader in this locker room, and he's now gone. And I think really what we're finding out is Joe Mixon was more part of a leadership brand for this team than what anybody wants to admit. And so was Tyler Boyd. So without those players, what are you seeing right now as you're taking a look up close and personal with this team?
Yeah, I'd put Jesse Bates and Chidobe Awuzie on that category or in that list as well. What I'm seeing on tape is Von Bell and Jermaine Pratt, two captains, I think two very positive influences overall who are having negative seasons compared to their expectations. However, you turn on the tape and you see moments where their communication with teammates after the play isn't exactly in the mold you'd want it to be. You see examples where they seem confused or not on top of the details. Lou Anarumo has brought up more mistakes by Von Bell through 8 games this season than he brought up for the first 3 years of Von Bell in Cincinnati. You have Jermaine Pratt over-aggressive, trying to make plays. The whiff tackle on Devontae Smith, that's not fundamental football. So when you have the guys who are the core of your defense, and I think are good locker room team guys, when you have them not being part of the solution, and in some cases, man, you're hurting this thing. I mean, that really is where you see this show up.
I got to ask you the dreaded trade question, because we're less than a week away from the NFL trade deadline. Typically, if teams aren't going to make the playoffs, and I'm not saying that the Cincinnati Bengals have given up on their season, I hope that they are going to make the playoffs. But at what point between now and the trade deadline, they might even consider getting some draft picks for the players that seemingly aren't going to be coming back because they're playing out the string? What are you hearing in terms of the trade deadlines? What kind of names you think are circulating, or who they'll be getting calls about over the next week or so?
Yeah, I'll start here. Like, if this were, let's take this being the Bengals out of it. If you were just to look at this as a team of 53 guys on paper called the Cincinnati Street Posts,
yeah.
Well, this team would be sellers. When you look at what this core is, this is a team that should be sellers and not buyers. When you look at their history and when you look at, the credibility that Higgins and Hendrickson have, obviously I don't see them making those moves. Even though, like Tennessee, all right, they've punted on the season, they're pivoting to the future. For the Bengals to make that type of move, you literally have to have Carlos Dunlap posting his house for sale on Twitter, which is literally how he did and how he got out of Cincinnati.
That's right.
If he didn't post that house on Twitter, I don't know that they would have dealt him. So I don't see them making moves. But when you look at what they should do with the trade deadline, I wouldn't be buying if I were this team, because I don't see those buying acquisitions paying off enough for him to make a difference. And I don't see them selling just because I just don't see them. I don't think anyone would see them realistically trading T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson.
See, you know what you did, Charlie? You just gave the players who won out, you just gave them the answer to the test. You might have some players now posting their house on Twitter, getting what they want here. Is that right? It could happen.
It worked out for Carlos. Obviously you don't want that, but it did work out for Carlos.
So you just gave some players some idea. I just want you to know. Hey, listen, though, this has not been a team that usually gets creative. It's sort of paint by numbers, right? Let's be honest, right?
Sure.
In what ways might this team, would they look to add a player? In what way could even the coaching staff, which so much of this is out of their hands when it comes to the contracts, in what ways can the organization or the coaching staff get creative to infuse this team with some form of enthusiasm that we're hearing seems to be lacking? Hey, is it Jermaine Burton? He seems to be productive when he gets a shot to play, and I know he doesn't quite know everything about the playbook. In what way, shape, or form? Maybe it's more of a battle on the back end on defense. I don't know. In what way can they start making some changes as they look to improve, moving not to next year, but toward the end of this season?
And that's the thing. I don't see those levers to pull. Now, you can talk me into a couple things. You can talk me into, should Akeem Davis-Gaither be playing more snaps? Maybe, but I don't know that fits the defense. Should Jordan Battle be playing more snaps? I'd say no, because every time they put him in the game, he allows one or multiple explosive plays. And his ability to get downhill against the run is actually something teams are exploiting, like they did on that play action pass. On offense, Jermaine Burton, if T is out, I think you need Burton more in the game. But if T. Higgins is in the game, is Jermaine Burton your dirty work, slot receiver, precise route running, opening things up for teammates right now? I'm not sure that's the use of his skill set that he's ready to be in this offense right now. So, like, they're really – do you put Josh Newton in for DJ Turner? You could talk me into that one as well. But, again, I don't know that Josh Newton's saving your season here in week 9. So, part of the problem, too, is they have such specific types at every single position. They've almost been very predictable in, like, mock drafts and free agency because they're so clear-cut what they look for. So, it's – all right, if you pull this lever, well, if you pull this card, well, it's just another card that's the exact same right behind it. It's backups that are almost the identical to what they already have in a lot of situations on the roster, and those aren't going to fix anything.
I got to ask you about this one player, and then Charlie, we'll let you go, because I get the sense that we're playing out the string with him, and for me, the Irish pipes are blowing, and it's sad. Because I think this guy, since he's come over, he's been the prime example of what you want in a Cincinnati Bengals player. I don't know that they're going to give him a contract extension. But to think that Mike Hilton could be playing out the string with the Cincinnati Bengals on defense, and he's still one of our best players. He's one of our best tacklers. He's one of our best pass rushers. He still does everything that you want in a football player. But tell me it isn't so, even though I'm the tea leaves are telling me that this could be it.
So you talk about levers to pull, and actually I like this one the most. Here's what I would do. I'd play Mike Hilton on third downs. I haven't gotten an explanation for why on the biggest downs of the season they've taken Mike Hilton out of the game for Josh Newton, for DJ Ivey. I believe it was the Giants, when Jalen Davis was active, they took Mike Hilton out of the game in 2-minute drills and on passing downs to put Jalen Davis straight off the practice squad in the game. And I have a hard time believing that Mike Hilton, maybe Mike Hilton's not 2021, 2022 Mike Hilton. I have a hard time believing that he's not the guy against the pass that Jalen Davis is now in his career. So that's another level they should have pulled, lever they should have pulled that the Bengals aren't getting enough from.
I'm telling you, this guy is one heck of a football player. As you well know, one heck of a locker room guy, a phenomenal leader. He's been very exemplary since he's joined the team, and I really wish him the best. I want to continue to play for. So do I get any luck with that wish, Charlie? What do you think's going to happen here?
They need to, but again, this is a team that kind of just is what it is. It makes me think, I'm curious, did you ever have a season like this as a team where you entered the year with such high expectations and it just got away from you?
No, I mean, every year I was with the Bengals, I think we went to the playoffs, except my rookie year because it was a strike year. So that was a year that got away. Trust me when I tell you, because I think we were 1-1. We had the 49ers beaten in that very last game before the strike. And now that's that historical game where I think they scored 14 or 20 points in the last 2 minutes. I don't know how you even do that, by the way, but they did, and they end up winning the game. And so now we go on strike. I think 6 weeks later we come back, and we had a lead at halftime on everyone and squandered that lead in the second half every single week. I mean, we couldn't close out a game to save our lives. But that was the sort of building blocks for next year's team, which ended up going to a Super Bowl, because we realized that we were good enough to play with anyone. We just needed to finish off games. We needed to play for four quarters. And Paul Brown addressed the team in training camp that year and told us, you guys are good enough to beat anybody in this league. He said, in fact, they're all scared of you. We just need you to know how good you are. And so it kind of reminds me of this team. They need to know just how good they really are, because as you well know, they seem to bring out the best in every single opponent. Every single team that plays them believes that they're getting ready to get the best of the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. They come in half intimidated. And then, we just don't know what team is going to show up. Is that fair?
It's funny you mentioned that because, all right, if I were just to ask, are the Bengals a young team or an old team? I'd say they feel like an older team, but they've got, 12 rookies? And when you look at some of these games, Dejon Anthony against the Chiefs, Ryan Rico against the Ravens with the drop snap, some of these defensive backs is what we're seeing. You're seeing the young guys who are playing make these mistakes in the brightest moments and not making winning plays when it's time to win the game. So, the Bengals are a team that's best guys are going to continue to get older and older and further in their careers. And while these young guys are being thrown into more prominent roles right away, are these still the guys who you think are going to learn from it, become the next core, and eventually take over? I don't know that I know the answer to that question. So it doesn't feel like a young team learning how to win, even though it's young guys not knowing how to win that's costing them the games. And I don't know that they're going to see the fruit of that labor with the team being better suited to win those games in, say, next year, 2026.
One piece of advice that I have moving forward, and I think Cincinnati Bengals fans should know at least where I stand on this. When you draft players that turn out to be successful, there's no doubt you sign them to a second contract. There's no doubt. And I'll give you an example. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, it's no doubt they drafted those players. They should get a second contract. Jesse Bates was drafted by this team out of Wake Forest in the second round. He lived above his draft grade. He should have been awarded a second contract with this team, not on the market, but with this team. And when people think that you can't afford a $50 million quarterback, a $30 million receiver, and another $25 million receiver, Charlie, tell our fans and our listeners, when the Eagles took the field at Paycor Stadium, how much was their quarterback making and how much were their two wide receivers making?
And, they've highly invested in the offensive line. They've highly invested draft capital in the defensive line. They had two young cornerbacks making incredible plays. It's what they've done around the court and the guys they're paying. They've got a generation of guys that the Bengals don't have. Go back through the 2021 draft after Jamar, the 2022 draft. I like Cam, but all of it's been so up and down and inconsistent. We're at the point now where we'll make it to March and we'll be saying, who on the Bengals are they going to extend? Is it time to give Cam a contract extension? Cam Taylor-Britt? We'll look at the ups and downs he's had this season. I don't know what the market is for Cam Taylor-Britt is right now. He still feels so young. They've already cut Zach Carter. You go through these drafts, their 2021 draft, they've already cut Jackson Carman. Joseph Osai's probably in his last year as a Bengal. This stuff just hasn't worked out, and they've got no one else to pay, and you're not paying T. Higgins, and you only have so many avenues to get premier players in the building, and now you're letting premier players walk out the door.
That's the problem. We drafted correctly in some cases, and we're letting them walk and not getting any compensation for them. And I think those players are deserving of a contract. And I think we've blown away the myth that, yes, you can pay your quarterback $50 million a year and still keep core players around them. The Philadelphia Eagles have done that. We see that. The Miami Dolphins have done that. So it's a myth to think that you can't do it. And so we have to allow the Bengals fan base to understand that we should expect more. And we can expect more. Yes.
It's not even that. It's not like, can you pay a quarterback and two receivers? You know what I do? I pay my three best players.
There you go.
Or I guess
who are our three best players on offense? The guys who put the ball in the end zone. You're talking Joe. You're talking T. Higgins. You're talking Jamar Chase. Not necessarily in that order, but these guys are fundamental building blocks. So we certainly wish the best. And Charlie, I know you got to get going. Thank you for joining us here on the Bleav in Bengal podcast. You're the best, my friend. We'll catch you next time, okay?
Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone. Look, you got to try this new drink. It's called Cherubundi. It is the latest, greatest thing on the market. It's a whole natural drink, of course, a lot of antioxidants. It's a fruit and vegetable drink with no added sugars. It's wonderful because it reduces soreness as well as increase your recovery. And it's used by over 500 collegiate universities all around the world, in Europe as well as in Brazil also. So don't forget to go to the website at cherubundi.com to order your drinks today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bleav in Bengal podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcots. Of course, it's that time for our Performer of the Week, which is brought to you by French Creek Roofing, Greater Cincinnati's choice for roofing, windows, and siding. Of course, in a most disappointing game like what we had Week 8 Sunday against the Eagles, the one player that continues to play at a tremendously high level is our quarterback, Joe Burrow. And if you don't believe me, just ask the people at PFF, because right now Joe Burrow is the second highest graded quarterback in the National Football League. He has 3 interceptions through 8 games. All 3 interceptions was when he was targeting his favorite receiver, Jamar Chase. The work that's needed to be perfect between a quarterback and wide receiver, the threshold is very high. But still, that's a pretty good ratio when you consider 15 touchdowns across 3 interceptions, through 8 games. So we're right around the halfway mark. And if you were to play that out over the course of the second half of the season, if those numbers were identical, then Joe Burrow would end up with 30 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. That's how good those numbers are. If you had 30 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions in the season, one would argue that's an MVP type performance at the quarterback position. Anytime you throw for 30 touchdown passes in 16 or 17 regular season games, that's phenomenal. And then only 6 interceptions over a 17-game regular season. That's really good. So that tells you that Joe Burrow is playing at a very high level, and we want him to keep it up. He is our performer of the week 8 for the Cincinnati Bengals. By the way, if you're looking at this nice slick cap that I have on my head, remember it's called Melon Hats. And of course, you can go to the website at melon.com, MELIN.com. They're very durable. They last 5 times as long as your normal baseball cap because it's made from great materials and great properties. It's a wonderful hat. Don't forget to get yours by going to melon.com, MELIN.com. One other nugget about Joe Burrow, I'm going to tell you this about it. He is such a good player that right now I'm starting to get concerned. As a team, what we cannot do is waste the talents of Joe Burrow. We need to make sure that we finish this with a Super Bowl ring. He can't be like Dan Marino. He can't be like our 2 previous MVPs who were great quarterbacks for the Bengals, Kenny Anderson and Boomer Esiason. They're MVP players who never won a Super Bowl. Let's not allow that to happen again, Cincinnati. We'll be back with more right here on the Bleav in Bengal podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Bleav in Bengal podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcots. Right now, it's time to look ahead to the Week 9 game against the Las Vegas Raiders, who will be paying a visit to Paycor Stadium on Sunday. Of course, this segment is brought to you by Midwest Hospice. Of course, if you're dealing with the final days of a loved one, we know that time can be very difficult and very overwhelming. So go to the people at Midwest Hospice. They have been serving Cincinnati for the last 10 years. Look, the Cincinnati Bengals are getting ready to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. They come in with a 2-6 record. We're only 1 game better at 3-5, so we can't overlook anyone, not even the Las Vegas Raiders, who are a little bit dysfunctional right now. They're without their star receiver, Devontae Adams. Remember him? He was traded to the New York Jets. And look, we were looking forward to this great homecoming for one Michael Mayer. You remember he was the second-round pick during the 2023 draft for the Las Vegas Raiders. We were hoping the Bengals would have drafted him. He's a Covington Catholic kid who played at Notre Dame, would be coming back to play the Cincinnati Bengals. But right now he's on the non-football injury list, so we wish Michael Mayer well. That's about all I can say for the Raiders. I don't wish them well. I'm wishing the Cincinnati Bengals get our 4th win this season. Maybe if we can win back-to-back games, we can get back to 500. Here's what we're looking at with the Raiders, okay? They come in with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the season through their first 8 games. He is the league leader with 11 turnovers. He's a quarterback that's highly turnover prone. Our Cincinnati Bengals defense has to take advantage of that. We got to be able to play much better defensively, particularly against a gunslinger like Gardner Minshew. This guy will throw it all over the yard. And if you don't make him pay for it, he'll carve you up. What he is though, he's going to give you a chance to pick off a few, and you've got to be able to catch him. They've got, to me, one of the great young tight ends the game has ever seen. He's a rookie, Brock Bowers from the University of Georgia. You might remember him because I was standing on the stump just praying and hoping the Bengals used their first overall pick on him. I love Amarius Mims, but I wanted Joe Bowers on the Cincinnati Bengals offense playing with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. What if I told you through 8 games, Brock Bowers had 52 catches and 532 yards through 8 games? So if you were to extend that out over the course of the season, that gives him over 100 catches on the year and over 1,000 yards receiving as an NFL rookie tight end. This guy is one of the most best and blossoming stars in the National Football League, so I think you're going to enjoy watching him. 2 guys you need to be aware of on defense for the Raiders, Max Crosby, who's one of the best great pass rushers in our game. He's got 6.5 sacks through 8 games this year. He missed one of those games, so really he played in 7. So 6.5 sacks through 7 games. He's great. And Jack Jones is a talented corner who I love watching. He is a talented corner as you're ever going to see. This guy is a snake. He'll jump out of the grass and bite you. So Joe Burrow, watch out for Jack Jones. I'm just here to tell you, this guy is a pick waiting to happen if you're not paying attention. All right, Cincinnati Bengal fans, let's show up to Paycor Stadium to root our Bengals on and hope we get our 4th win of the season against the Las Vegas Raiders. Thank you for joining me. Then don't forget to join us again next week. Take care, everyone.